For 30 years, a small group of people with a shared belief that the land we love is worth protecting has helped shape the future of the Blue Ridge. It started with a simple idea that the farms, forests, and open spaces of Western Virginia shouldn't be left to chance, but protected for generations to come.
My husband and I realized there were no local organizations that were promoting land conservation or letting people know about conservation easements and the benefits of preserving their land permanently.
I was a kid, I grew up outside. My kids grow up outside. I would hate to see that vanish.
Even at an early age, I was worried about what might happen to our land, what's going to happen to our community. I saw things changing rapidly and knew that we just couldn't take it for granted that the next generation was going to have the opportunity to grow up in a place like I did.
That's the beginning of this outfit, and we started from scratch. Rented a tiny little office in the Crystal Spring area.
I love the place we live. I love the open space, the land. I love agriculture. I want to see that available for future generations like all of us do.
Okay, we've got these people that want to do easements.
I went to Staples and bought a computer and a desk, and off we went.
We knew there was a need. Now we had to fill it. This is the story of getting started, of charting the course from assisting the greenways to become a full-fledged land trust, to name changes, mergers, and expanding our reach, and all the struggles and victories along the way.
We began to work with the Greenway Commission at that time. The Greenway Commission was kind of almost like a sister organization to us, formed at the same time, kind of out of that Valley Beautiful movement in 1996. And one of the early things we did, and one of the purposes of the land trust was to help the Greenway Commission with easements.
We started with 23 counties because Rupert had the vision that we would be the Western Virginia, from Roanoke southwest to Tennessee, land trust, because nobody else was providing that service.
I brought my salary with me, the grants from Mellon and Nordstrom, and that's how the Western Virginia Land Trust was able to hire an executive director.
With a staff of one, there was only so much we could achieve.
That was a big project. In fact, it's too big for what we had is basically one staff in a small office in South Roanoke with a great volunteer board, but it was a little bit much.
We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Barbara Lemon. She was not just kind of the founding board president for several years, but she was really the fortitude and the determination behind the organization.
From there, there are other good ideas that she was among the founders of. And one of them is what is now the Blue Ridge Land Conservancy. And when she put her mind to organization, well, she was pretty good at it. And so she was the founding board chair and was well suited to the role. And she was proud of it at the time, and I'm proud of her now for the work that she did.
My dad was, of course, the leader amongst us for that, and the whole value of the open space that hasn't been developed. As he said, we can't pave everywhere.
Dad, growing up on the farm in North County, he was a little bit of a romantic and sentimentalist, and he just loved seeing cattle out grazing on the land.
You could never go for a car ride with him without hearing about the history of every single property and every landowner you passed.
Yeah.
He was just encyclopedic in his knowledge, and he was a great character. I didn't like to have him drive, honestly.
If you could, talk a little bit about the people who were involved during the early days and some of the memorable people who helped guide the organization.
Yeah. There was a lot of them, but a few really stand out. Barbara Lemon and Lucy Ellett, a very determined individual who really saw the benefit of land conservancy.
Landowners, many of them had not heard of conservation easements, or maybe they'd heard of them and didn't have a complete understanding of how this may or may not fit on their land. So we did a lot of education with landowners in the early days too.
And the role of the Western Virginia Land Trust in its first years was educational. We let the landowners know this conservation easement opportunity existed and what its psychological and financial benefits to them would be, and to protect open space for the public. Protecting the views from the Blue Ridge Parkway and the Appalachian Trail became important.
We spent a lot of time just talking to landowners and trying to explain how they could make decisions as a family that would help them to conserve the farm.
But it was hard.
Just keeping that board going and keeping the land trust going during those somewhat lean years.
So just keeping the organization afloat was a challenge, and a challenge that we rose to, that the board did, and staff.
I think it was still fairly early days in the land trust. We were still just getting name recognition, doing a lot of education.
Money was always a big one. We were constantly seeking grant opportunities, doing fundraising.
You just mentioned something that hasn't come up yet, and that's trust. The organization has to not just appear to be solid, but actually be solid, and you've got to convey that to somebody before they're going to make a perpetual decision.
Sure you do, and it's not only the people who is first and foremost. Do you have trust in the staff and the volunteers who you're interacting with in the process? But do you have trust that the organization is going to be there 50 years from now when a threat to the property occurs and the easement holder, Blue Ridge Land Conservancy, is going to have to step up and defend their easement? So it's very important. If you don't have trust in someone who's holding something that's supposed to be forever, well, why would you do it?
We laid the groundwork to make sure people were aware that this could be an option to help protect their land.
I mean, it was several years into our existence as a land trust before we held our first easement.
I remember mentioning a conservation easement to my family. My parents and my aunt owned the land that they protected. And I'm sure they thought this is some crazy hippie thing that David read about. It was not something they took seriously at first.
I've come to really appreciate those people and the people that are here for generations, the 5, 6, 7 generation families that you see the names on all the roads, you see the names on the rivers, you see, there's history here.
That really fed in with my family's values and their long-term vision for the land. So after a lot of conversations, a lot of back and forth, getting the entire family involved and on board with it, we approached Western Virginia Land Trust. And I remember Rupert Cutler and Janet Scheid were the first folks from the land trust to set foot on our land, and negotiated the terms, and ended up being the second easement that the Western Virginia Land Trust held.
We were obviously instrumental in getting the easements on Carbons Cove and Mill Mountain, but I got to give about 90% of the credit for that for Rupert Cutler.
The 20th anniversary celebration was a really cool thing too. Bill Hackworth and a couple others of us walked the 20 miles from Carbons Cove to the Mill Mountain Star, which are both easements that we hold, in one day. And a lot of other people joined us for parts of that. So that was a really fun way to celebrate. Glad we're not doing a 30th that way there.
So we had some conversations with some neighboring land conservancies and decided, to make the name change. It was also the time when Roanoke was kind of going towards that Blue Ridge, name. Everything was becoming Blue Ridge. And kind of a silly reason was we kept being confused with West Virginia, with land conservancies in West Virginia by being Western Virginia. And so we wanted to change that moniker.
That's when I reached out to Dave at Blue Ridge and said, hey, we've got these people that want to do easements. Nobody's willing to hold their easement. Would you consider coming into my service area and holding easements?
Continually being asked to look at property and to hold easements outside what was our very tight Roanoke-centric region at that time.
After a lot of negotiations back and forth, he said, you've already got a group of volunteers. Instead of me just coming over there, why don't we merge?
You cannot do this kind of work just with staff. You need people out in the community, especially if you're based here and you're going to be doing work in the Piedmont or South Side.
So what's the difference between the Land Trust in its early years and the Land Conservancy today?
I think our reach, our scope, and that all ties into having a staff, a very good, dedicated staff that, we can reach our fingers out into all of those other communities.
So it's absolutely critical to build a base of people that are good volunteers, that believe in what we're doing, that know people in the community, and that'll do the work to go out there and establish trust, because it's about trust.
Since I've started, we have probably, if not doubled or tripled, our easements in that area since we've had somebody there. It's continuing to grow.
I really want to become an integral part of every community that we're in, which means really becoming an integral part of Roanoke, Lynchburg, Danville, Martinsville, Rocky Mount, all the other smaller towns that are out there, Blacksburg, so that important enough that people would miss us if we're not there.
A big challenge that we had was that we were out of room.
How do you make a decision about what your next office is going to be?
It turned out it had everything we wanted. It became the Lemon House, and I think it was an excellent decision.
The Lemon House, which her kids and her husband Bill provided funding for, was really named in honor of Barbara Lemon. We do get that question, how much land is enough?
Conserved land benefits us all, and in innate ways and ways that are, very direct and in your face in terms of view sheds and all. But just seeing the wildlife and the lands that are protected, it's tremendously satisfying.
We're serving a much different geographic area now, but the mission is the same and the work is largely the same, but we've grown into a much larger organization. Obviously started as a scrappy startup organization trying to find its way, trying to partner with other organizations. And now it seems that we're the organizations people want to partner with. And I think with David Perry's leadership, with our staff and board over years, we've become kind of a go-to authority. And that's something to be proud of.
They're just wonderful folks to work with, and I think that they just do just an amazing job.
I think as long as there is and I hate to say threat, but it is a threat sometimes, a threat to our most important natural places, that we're going to have a role in protecting those important natural places.
Happy birthday to the Blue Ridge Land Conservancy and for all the good work that they have done to help preserve what I've already said and truly believe is a uniquely beautiful part of this earth.
I think the Blue Ridge Land Conservancy has just done a marvelous job of adding to the service district, merging with the group based in Lynchburg and a group in Martinsville, and expanding the service area and adding to the staff and the impact. It's just been a marvel for me to watch. In terms of its vigor and vitality and its sense of momentum, I think the Blue Ridge Land Conservancy is right at the top.
So it's hard to say what the future might hold, but I know that whatever it does hold, that if there is a threat to the places that we love in central and southern and southwest Virginia, that there will be a role for organizations like ours to protect those places, because people want them to be around for their grandkids and their grandkids' grandkids.
Conserving land isn't just about today. It's about ensuring that the beauty, the history, and the way of life we cherish will still be here tomorrow. Blue Ridge Land Conservancy, 30 years of saving the lands and waters you love. Forever starts now.